I want to welcome you to another episode of the CVC Home Service Success Network. This is sponsored each and every week by the CVC Success Group, and we present this to give you ideas, to give you concepts. Maybe it even gives you strength, which is part of what our purpose is today. Where we go over various things. A lot of times we have guests on, a lot of times we don't. It's all about the messages that we have assembled for you each and every week. And where do we get our content from? We get our content from watching home service contractors that provide all kinds of services and the discussions that they get on various Facebook discussion groups. Also, we get it from the conversations that we actually have. So today's topic is focus and clarity. Focus and clarity. And what made me think about this was, Cheryl, do you remember when we used to go and Larry Winget was a person that we were coached by? And one of the big things that Larry kept talking about was you got to have focus, you got to have clarity. And so often that's where I see problems are occurring. People are unable to retain their focus on the job at hand. And a lot of it comes from simply the chaos, the stress of running the business. It all comes from the problems that are dumped on top of us every single day. Because let's face it, managing and running a business is not easy in 2025. We have the changing customer. We'd hate to think of it, but we have customers that may not be happy. We may be having callbacks. We may be having absenteeism. There are so many things that suck our attention away and make us lose focus where everything turns blurry. So, Cheryl, what's your thought about the need for focus and clarity to what we're doing?
I think it's imperative because if you're not, your mind's just kind of doing the ping pong system, going from one thing to the other. And you can't, if you're not focusing on something, if you're just doing 5 minutes of this and 10 minutes of that and 2 minutes of that, number one, you're not going to accomplish anything on the short term. And without goals and destinations, you're not going to accomplish anything on the long term. The bad problem in people, one of them is if they can't focus on the daily stuff, they're not focusing on their goals at all. So there's no clarity about where they've been and where they're going. The thing is, most of the people don't even know where they've been. So where they're going is really out of where they're trying to think at the moment. So clarity is imperative.
Right. And that brings up the need for tracking and measurement, where we track and we measure and we see what our successes are each and every day. But we also look at what are the challenges that were presented on any day of the week that we're going to work. And what caused the challenge? What is there out there that caused this to happen? I mentioned a while ago callbacks. Callbacks are a pain for anybody. They're costly, they're wasteful. And what we've got to do whenever these things happen is we can't get panic stricken. We've got to come up with solutions. Right now, a lot of people are seeing a downturn in their leads this year. The leads are coming in less for some companies right now. So what have you got to do to make the leads pick up? You got to develop your KPIs, your key performance indicators, where each and every day you're looking at the business for how did it perform? We're not working this out of our head. We're actually tracking and measuring and understanding from there what we're doing and how we're doing it. So we got to feel down and we got to deal with the business, but we got to deal with it with a level head. I mean, think about it. I used this the other day. We're doing this broadcast right after the Super Bowl. And I watched the Super Bowl the other night. Let me ask you a question. Was the first half chaotic? You better believe it. If you had been the coach of the Kansas City Chiefs, what would you have done at halftime to inspire your people to get back out there because it was still winnable? But they were going to have to change their process. They were going to have to up their game in order to do this. But a lot of times that's where we're at. We've got to up our processes. We got to up our game because the challenges are coming at us. Right now, a lot of people are very fearful of rising prices. How often a day do you hear people complaining about the price of an egg? Let's get real. It's unreal how much social discussion goes on about the cost of eggs. It's wrecking our minds, it's wrecking your customers' minds. And when customers get paranoid, they've got to be able to, or you have got to be able to lower that panic in them. How are you speaking to your community? Are you presenting yourself as the community expert where you're speaking to your community, and your community is the people that buy from you or may buy from you? How are you staying in contact with these people? You see, there's all kinds of solutions, and this is why you have to maintain your focus. You have to maintain your clarity on what needs to be done and developing strategic plans to make it happen. Strategic plans. It was just a couple short years ago. Cheryl and I were in New Orleans, Louisiana, and we were there for an industry trade show. And the week that we were there, the COVID crisis threw panic across the world. It seemed like the world was going to end. We were scared we weren't even going to be able to catch a flight home. They were going to shut the airlines down by the end of the week. In fact, a lot of people got on planes early to get out of there because they were scared they were going to get stuck. But when we got through that initial shock of this, business got pretty good in the remainder of 2020. Yeah, there were some rough spots and a lot of people had to go through it. So when you got crisis coming up, crisis in your business, chaos in your business, how are you handling it? Winston Churchill is credited with saying the following: never waste a crisis. When a crisis is going on in your business, how are you solving the crisis? And what's the steps you're taking to not repeat the chaos once again? So, Cheryl, what's your thoughts here?
One of the things that comes to mind is without clarity, how hard it is to make a decision. You're just pulling something out. You're making bad decisions. You can't focus on the problem because it's so chaotic. You're stressed out. Your brain's puzzled up. No clarity. No direction of what to do. And I think when people are in these chaotic times, as it is this time of year, a lot of times, they start making really bad decisions. They don't think them through. But without system, especially in going back to the business realm of it, without your systems in place, you have nothing to look back on other than just your memory, which now is jumbled up and it's chaotic. So to me, the systems and having everything written where you and your employees and your management can understand what needs to be done, then between the company, you can make very good decisions. And as you start taking one problem off and getting rid of it, the problems get lighter, the day gets a little bit neater. But the other thing is, a lot of times lack of clarity is causing about 90% of the problems because people are just rushing through and doing what they do. They don't have the clarity to make the decisions.
And it's interesting as we're talking, I'm thinking about being on a road trip and how fortunate we are today that we have GPSs. And I know my GPS will often alert me there's a disabled car ahead or there's a speed trap ahead. Now, I don't speed as a rule, but still, it does alert me to that. It alerts me to traffic hazards that are coming up. And in the real world, here's the problem: there is no GPS that's going to tell us what's going to happen today. There is no crystal ball that's going to tell us. All we can do is look at the trends, keep an eye on our key performance indicators, keep our eyes on the prize. Where are we going? We got to have a solid foundation. We can't climb and scale a business when we have an unstable foundation that the business is built on. So again, it all takes great business sense to make things happen and to lower your frustrations. So Cheryl, anything else you'd add on this topic today?
I want to back up for what you just said about a GPS. That's a great example. I mean, as long as that GPS is working fine, you're getting where you're going. but I know where you go when your GPS loses connection. And it always loses connections when you're at a fork in the road, when you need to make that decision. So, as the GPS gives you clarity and focus on the roads, so does using your systems as your GPS gives you the clarity at work and in life.
Yeah, and the GPS will tell you all kinds of stuff. And I was just telling Cheryl this morning, I had to go to a trip this week near Raleigh. And I'd always heard that AB from the Andy Taylor show was buried in Siler City. So as I was coming back, I go right through the main road of Siler City. Right through the high 4-lane road goes right there. And what did my GPS tells me? It told me that AB was buried right there. And by having that GPS, I did something that was pretty unique. I went and saw Aunt B's grave. Guess what I found there? Jars of pickles on Aunt B's grave. It was really amazing because if you ever watched the Andy Griffith show, the pickle episode was one of the most popular ones. So having that GPS, yes, it can tell you a lot. But as a business owner, what you got to do is you have to maintain your focus on your destination. You got to be aware. Detours are going to come up. It's part of life. It's part of business. We get it as human beings. We get it as business owners that all of a sudden something throws up a roadblock ahead. And what we've got to do is be ready to react to that roadblock because as the business owner, you've got to navigate the path. You know, the whole thing is always remember anybody can steer the ship, but someone has to plot the course for the ship to go. So, Cheryl, that's all from me today. What about you? Anything else?
That's all for me. I just want people to, through these chaotic times, take a deep breath, get their thoughts together, business and personal, and try not to stress out so much because that level is what throws you into even more problems.
That's it. And with that, hey, we appreciate you joining us today for this episode of the CVC Home Service Success Network. We're CVC Success Group, and we work with people just like you all across the country to help you decide what is your strategic plan to help you devise this strategic plan to hold you accountable to that strategic plan. And we also, one of the things that Cheryl does, hey, she's very good at recruiting people, interviewing them, and handing you some employees that will help you take your ship to where you want to go. So appreciate you joining us today. We'll see you next week on the next episode of the CVC Home Service Success Network. Hope you're having a great week, and we will talk to you next time. Reach out. Our email addresses are right here on the screen if we can help you.